Taf Lamed Amid Beis will begin Lamed Amid Aleph, 3 lines from the bottom with the 2 dots. Ma'arvim le'nozer b'yayin, we can make an eruv for a nozer with yayin. Even though he is not allowed to drink the wine, and nozer is not allowed to drink the wine, it's still kosher for an eruv because other people can drink this wine. So the Gemara must nissen to like a Beis Shammai. The Mishnah is not like Beis Shammai. The Sanya Beis Shammai says, Beis Shammai, ein ma'arvim le'nozer b'yayin Yisrael b'truma. You cannot make an eruv out of yayin for a nozer or for Yisrael with truma because they're not allowed to eat and drink that, so it's not kosher for an eruv. Beis Hillel ein ma'arvim le'nozer b'yayin Yisrael b'truma. But Beis Hillel says, no, it is valid. Amr lehem Beis Hillel Beis Shammai. They said, Iyatem maidim, aren't you maidim? That you can make an eruv for a godol on Yom Kippur. So even though he can't eat it, but it's food. It's something that's roy la'achila. It's a suda. There's 2 sudas. So it's considered a choshev. It's something choshev for an eruv, even though practically speaking he's not allowed to eat it. Amr lehem avo. Beis Shammai said yes. I might have by Yom Kippur. So therefore, if you're mighty by Yom Kippur, so Amru Lahen, Beis Hillel said to them, Kishem Shemarvin Godol B'Yom Kippurim, Ken Marvin and Nazar B'Yam Yisrael B'Truma. Just like you're mighty that for a Godol you can be marv on Yom Kippur even though he can't eat it, so too you should be able to be marv for a Nazar B'Yayin or Yisrael B'Truma. Or Beis Shammai, how are they machalek? What's the difference? Samikas Udaharu Yemei Yajayim. He says there's a difference. The difference is because Beis Shammai says that Seifa Yom is kind of Eruv. When the Eruv takes effect, it's the end of Erev Shabbos. By the end of Erev Shabbos, when the Eruv takes effect, the Godel could eat. It's not Yom Kippur yet. They don't hold Tchilas Yom kind of Eruv. They don't hold that the eruv takes effect on the onset of Shabbos. It takes effect right before Shabbos. And as the Rishonim speak out, that means that it takes effect right before the Shabbos when there's a time that it's still mutter to eat, when you're still allowed to eat. So the eruv takes effect at the last possible moment before the onset of Shabbos when you can still eat. So therefore, the eruv on Yom Kippur, legodol marv legodol be'erev Yom Kippur, you can be marv for the godol for Yom Kippur, even though he can't eat on Yom Kippur. But when the eruv takes effect, then he could eat. Masha'en kain, the nozer, the yayin on erev Yom Kippur, on erev Shabbos rather, he can't drink it. And Yisrael b'truma, even if you say seif kind of eruv. However, even at that point, before Shabbos, it's also for the Yisrael B'Trum. It's also the Ayin for the Nazir. So that's why Beis Shammai is machalik between the 2. But in basic terms, Beis Hillel says it doesn't have to be a suda that this person, the person who's ma'arev, can eat, as long as it's something that's roy la'achila that can be eaten by somebody. Beis Shammai says that the ma'arev himself has to be able to eat it. But on Yom Kippur, Marvin and Legodol Yom Kippurim, because it takes effect right before Yom Kippur, and at that point he's allowed to eat it. So Gemara says, "Keman delei Chananya." This interpretation of Beis Shammai that we just said, that is not like Beis Shammai. That is not like Chananya, rather. The Sanya Chanana Emer call Asman shel Beis Shammai Eloi Hayemonim Be'erev Ad Sheyotzim Yitasuf Kol Klei Tashmish L'Sham. This interpretation of Beis Shammai is not like Chananya, because Chananya said it's not enough to be kind of shvisa. It's not enough just to have the Muslim of Shtei Sudais. He argues on that whole concept of Erev, that whole understanding of Erev. It's not just a Muslim Shtei Sudais. It's not considered his bias, his Malkum Shvisa, if you simply have food over there. He says it's only considered to be his Malkum Shvisa if whatever he needs for the Shabbos is in that place. Then it's considered to be his house. So he has to have his bed and kol kli tashmisha, all what he needs, his clothing, etc. All that he needs there to be there on the onset of Shabbos, that's when you can have an Eruv. But simply with having the food in multiple Sudas, Chananya holds that that's not the understanding of Eruv in Beis Shammai. According to whom does the following go? That says we learned Eruv Bishchayim. If he made an Eruv when he was wearing black clothing, Lo Yetze B'Levonim, he can't go out on Shabbos wearing white clothing. And B'Levonim, if he made the Eruv wearing white clothing, Lo Yetze B'Shchayim, he can't go with black clothing. Come on, according to whom does this go? Amar of Nachman by Yitzchak, Hanani believe the Beis Shammai. It's going according to Hanani believe the Beis Shammai that you have to have all your clothing there. So if he didn't have he was wearing the white and he didn't have the black, or vice versa, then he can't go out with that other clothing. Correct the Gemara. You mean to say if he was wearing white clothing when he made the Eruv, and as the Rishonim speak out, they hold in addition that Hananya holds that the person not only has play tashmisha has to be present at the Eruv, but he himself has to. So Hananya if he's wearing white clothing at the time of at the onset of the Eruv, he can't go out with black clothing. How about which implies that he could go out with white clothing. But how can he even go out with the white clothing? It says that the Eruv is only valid if he has all what he needs for the Shabbos is there. So how can he even go out with the white clothing? If he made the Eruv wearing white clothing, his white clothing is there. But if his black clothing is not there, then how can he even go out with the white clothing? It's not a valid Eruv, because if he anticipates that he's going to need the black clothing, then he doesn't have all klei tashmisha l'sham, so it should not be considered his bias, his shvisa. How can it be a valid Eruv to begin with? More answers, Hachi Kamar. What we mean is as follows. If he made the Eruv wearing white clothing, and he will need, anticipating needing black clothing on Shabbos, he can't even go with the white clothing because he hasn't brought out kol tashlich l'sham. So, Kiman, according to whom does this go? Amrav Nachbar Yitzchak, Hanani, believe the Beis Shammai. It's Hanani, believe the Beis Shammai that holds you have to have your presence and all klei tashmisha l'sham. Sumcha Soimer Bechulin, Sumcha says that a Nazir can go out with yain, but a Yisrael cannot go have an Eruv, use an Eruv based on Truma. It's only if it's Chulin. But as far as Nazir B'yayin Loi Polik, he doesn't argue. He says it is valid. My timer, what's the reason? What's the distinction between the two? More answers after the Mitchell and the Zirus. He can be shoyal on his Nazirus. So potentially the wine is fit for him. He can drink the wine if he's shoyal on his Nazirus. Well, he can be shoyal on his designation of the Truma. He has his Truma. The Yisrael designated this food as Truma. Well, just like you're saying, it's the Simchas would say that the yain is potentially permitted for him because he can be shoyal on his Naziris and he can annul the Naziris and therefore the wine will be permitted. He can be shoyal on his designation of the Truma and the Truma will become mutter to him. So therefore it's also, meaning if you're saying that Simcha says basically that it has to be food, not like Basil says food that has to be permitted to him, but you're saying by the Nazir he can be shown and potentially it could become mutter. Well, potentially the Truma could become mutter also if he's shoyal. More says no, if he's shoyal, it now wouldn't be mutter, because if he's shoyal, it's tevel. It's not chulin, it's tevel. So the more affecting more of a liv shalom ma'achir. Okay, but potentially it's still mutter. He can be shoyal on it. It's tevel, and he can be mafresh from some other food. He can be mafresh on this, take away the truma, and this will be mutter for him. More answer. Chaverim Tamid Chachamim, people are shemer and medaktik the mitzvahs. We're not naksha. We're not suspected to be time shalei min amukav. The thing is that you have to be tairam, take the truma from something, from the produce which is in close proximity. If you have something which is far away, and then you can't be tayyim, you can't take truma on that produce. As a machlekes Rashi and Taisus, is it a deraisa derabanan? It's a deraisa de gedin according to Taisus, according to Rashi. It's a derabanan de gezera because we're chayshish that maybe you're taking truma on the produce and it's no longer intact. So in which case it's not a proper afrosha, it's not chal. So therefore, you cannot say that he has the possibility to turn the truma into chulin, because if he's shoyal on the hafrosh of truma, it makes a tel. And you can't take from Malkam Acher because you can't be terer shalom in a mukav. Strike the Gemara, v'lif shalom in eubei. Okay, but take it from it itself. Take an amount of truma, it's you're shoyal on it, it becomes tevel, and then take an amount that's needed, the shear that you take that amount, that echad b'chamishim mirabeinanis, that will render the remainder of it chulin, and now you have chulin. When it says the less by shiur, we're talking where there won't be enough of the shear. You won't have the shear of shtei su'udos, of 2 meals. If you take the truma off of it, what the remainder will not be the shear required for the erev. In fact, the Gemara, my piska, how can you? Why do you say it in such a case that it's what would force a Tana to qualify it in such a way that we're talking dafke in such a case? There would be no reason to talk in dafke in such a case and then say unequivocally that you can't be mafresh from a Yisrael betruma. Ela simchas like Rabban. We must say that simchas holds like the Rabbanon and Damri kol dover shumishum shvuz gozo ben shmashas. We must hold that simchas holds like the Rabbanon that holds that even something where the Isser is only a shvus, the Rabbanon, it's not a deraisa, even ben shmashas, which is a suffix yom suffix laila, it's still aser. As opposed to others who hold that a shvus, if it's ben shmashas, is muter. Simchas holds that if it's a shvus, even though something that's only a shvus, it is also ben shmashas. So therefore, you can't be mafresh the truma, because it's also, it's ben shmashas, it's also to be mafresh the truma, it's an isur d'rabbanan. In fact, says, well, what about a nozer liyayin? Simchas says that a nozer liyayin, it is muter. Why don't we have the same problem? It's also to be shoyal on your Nazirus, Bishon your Nadarm Nazirus is also shows the Rabbana. Taisa says, but if it's L'tzarech Shabbos, for Kovid Shabbos, and here you need the wine for Shabbos, then it is mutter. That type of, they were, even according to the Magen Avraham, it says that it goes Rabbeinu Shmoshes, but L'tzarech Shabbos, Kovid Shabbos is mutter. If that's the case, what about that we said before that Lo Yinechshlu Chaverim Litrim Shalom Min Amukav? Then also, but if it's L'tzarech Kovid Shabbos, it's mutter. Taisa says then we must be talking where he doesn't need that produce, that for Shabbos itself. It's only if he's going to use that food for Shabbos itself, then it would be mutter. So that's why Simchas holds that it's also fracture b'kiva eger. Well, what's pshat? Then how is a gadol? How are you ma'arvin with gadol on Yom Kippurim? Now, if you're going to say, like we said before, that Seif Yom Kaina Erev, and that it's a Suda, that's Ru'uya Mi Boyd Yom. Well, here also, why don't we say the same thing? That, according to Simchas, why can you not be Ma'arev Yisrael Betruma? Say that the Seif Yom is Kaina, and Mi Boyd Yom, he has the ability, Mi Boyd Yom, to be Shoyal on his Afroshas Truma, and to be Mafresh, the Truma. So what's the problem? Even though if Ben Shmoshes he can't be mafresh the truma, but if you say Seif Yom Kaina Erev, he could beforehand. So Rabbi Kiva says that we must say b'daichek that even though we say that Seif Yom Kaina Erev according to this, but it has to be a suda that's Ru'uya Mi B'oid Yom, and if you can't be mafresh the truma Ben Shmoshes, it's not considered Ru'uya Mi B'oid Yom. On something where you can't be mafresh the ben shmoshes, we don't say it's considered mibayid yom, because mibayid yom from before the day you have to have the ability. Now, right now it's truma. You have to have the ability right before the onset of Shabbos, right by the time that you're clean as sheaths of the erev, to be shoyal on the truma, and to be mafresh. Well, right before Shabbos, you don't have, it's not considered ru'uya if you can't be mafresh ben shmoshes, because you have to have the ability right before the onset of Shabbos to be shoyal and to be mafresh. If you can't be mafresh ben shmoshes, it's not considered ru'uya mi ba'id yom. Zok the Gemara, come on, Ozla Hadatznan, according to what to go with the following, that it says, Yesh Amra Kolafishu Adam, that you make the measurements of a person is subjective. It depends on each individual. So a larger person is larger, a smaller person is smaller. Mole Kumsa Mincha. So, Lamash, if you have the Mali Kumsa, the handful that you need for the Mincha, the Mali Kaimes, is according to the size of the fist of the Kain. Or Mali Chofn of Ketairis, and the 2 handfuls of Ketairis that are taken Yom Kippur, it depends on the size of the hands of the Kain Gadol. Vashesa Mali Lukim Yom Kippurim, and one who drinks a mouthful on Yom Kippur, it depends on the size of the mouth of the one who drinks it. Ubemazan Shtei Sudas La'erev, and the size of Shtei Sudas that are needed for air. Kiman, who's that going? According to Amar Bizera Simchasu, it must be going according to Simchas that says that when you judge the 2 sudas, it has to be 2 sudas for this person. He has to be able to eat it. So it has to be 2 sudas that are suitable for this person. It's 2 sudas that this person would eat, that it satisfies this particular person who's making the eruv. Let us say that Lema Pliga Rav Shimon Elazar, that this is not like Rav Shimon Elazar. The son of Rav Shimon Ben Elazar Aimer Ma'arvin Lachayla Zaken Kedem Zayin. Achayla or as an older person, you don't need the size of 2 meals of a healthy person or a younger person. It's what he would normally eat. 2 smaller sudas because he doesn't eat so much. But a person who eats a lot, a huge person who eats huge meals, you don't say you need 2 meals for that person. You say 2 average meals. So let us say that does not stem with Simchas, because Simchas says that it has to be 2 sudas that are suitable, edible for the person making the eruv. The Gemara says no. Targuma choyla v'zaken. Aval ravtan b'tola daita etzel kol adam. That what we say before, that we measured according to Kol Shu Adam, that we say that Yesh Amra Kol Shu Adam, that stems, it's consistent with what we say by the Choyla V'Zaken, that they don't need larger meals, because you judge it relative to the person in question. But by the case of the Ravdan, it's not a stira, because over there we don't judge it according to his meals, because there we say Batla Daita is a Kol Adam. That what he's doing, we're talking about that he's a glutton. So what he eats is excessive. So that we don't judge it, that's not considered 2 normal meals. Even though normally we say it has to be relative to the person in question, but that's only when we say that there are things that are considered normal for a person. But this is, for a Ravsan, it's abnormal. So we don't say that he's required to make 2 abnormal meals for the eruv.